I'm Rio from Clio, and right now we're going to go ahead and get to know our fantastic panelists and finalists. So let's go ahead and get started with a round of introductions. Now, I know we had kind of a high-level introduction for each of you, but I'd really love it if you could tell us a bit more about you and your company. So I would love to start with Glenn.
I thought I was going last, but that's fine.
Not this time, Glenn, you're first.
Yeah. Anyhow, so about me, I'm an engineer and MBA by training. Spent the early part of my career as a hardware design engineer. And then I went over to the dark side and got involved in product marketing and product management and joined as a founder of PMC Sierra and ultimately built a $200 million a year division there as a VP and left in 2001 and joined Redlen as CEO in 2002. So that's a bit about me. A bit about Redlen. So Redlen is a company that actually fabricates semiconductor materials. We do all that in-house, and these specialty semiconductors we produce are used for very advanced radiation imaging sensors. So we're delivering a quantum leap in imaging performance for key applications, including medical CT. So we're taking medical CT from the equivalent of, black and white TV, if anyone remembers that, to 4K high def LED TV quality. So it's massively improving the diagnostic imaging performance while reducing the radiation dose. And as Erica mentioned earlier, we were acquired in September 2021 by Canon Inc. for $435 million, and we will continue to operate as a wholly owned subsidiary of Canon Inc.
Oh, wow. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Glenn. Chris, on to you.
Thank you. And Rio, the office looks familiar. We're just across the way in your
Are you?
The other office that Cleo built, but thank you for that. So Chris Randall, I head up Freight Club, which is a subsidiary of Cymax Group Technologies. Cymax is a e-commerce technology and services provider, a fairly large one. Freight Club effectively is a shipping marketplace. We are offering shipping in the way that Expedia offers flights. So we're bringing together a network of carriers that are going to provide our retail clients the ability to ship products. The general idea is that we are leveraging our scale to provide discounted pricing and services to retailers of all sizes. So, and kind of trying to democratize or level the playing field with retailers of all sizes. Before this, I came from 20 years in software and in the Vancouver software community, and had been on in the TS before with a prior company called Response Tech, as we grew that company from scratch into a company that we sold 5 years ago. So yeah, excited to be here and to be on the panel.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we are excited to have you. All right. So Jeremy, on to you. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, my name's Jeremy. Very nice to meet everyone. Two individuals that have already had acquisition and are scaling again. You'll learn a lot more from them than from me. I'm a first-time scaler, so I probably don't know half of what I'm dealing with. But I've been doing this for about 9 years, driving Lighthouse Labs. I'm originally from Montreal, born and raised over there, and started a tech education company. And so what we do at Lighthouse is we train professionals with tech skills in very short burst programs, with the idea that the main focus for us is career outcomes and jobs and promotions and salary, as opposed to learning outcomes and test grades and scores. Our stuff has to be good enough for people to actually get the outcome they are looking for and the employer and company is looking for. And by doing that, we've kind of managed to build over time. We've gone from programs that were very boot camp specific and boot camp formats to iterations of different programs that are all meant to be highly supported, cohort based, and drive people's understanding of the workplace beyond just the content and curriculum and the knowledge they're supposed to acquire. Our big change point was we went remote, and so being remote, and that's a giveaway for a question part of what we're talking about later, but we're remote, and yet we're in a lot of cities across the country because we take a very localized approach to our efforts.
Got it. Got it. All right. And I am also on that remote bandwagon too. Except today, fun fact, first time I've been in the office in 2 years. So fantastic.
I was gonna make a joke, Rio, after Chris said that he recognized Glenn's office. I was gonna say, "Oh, Jay, I recognize your house. You know, we're both working remotely," but I decided.
Well, I mean, it's the thought that counts, right? Awesome. And Jay, certainly not last but not least, Jay, I'd love it if you could tell us a bit about yourself and your company.
Yeah, you bet. Again, I know my name is Jason on the literature, but I go by Jay. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ReadyMode. ReadyMode's a sales engagement platform for outbound contact centers. We unify the CRM, call center management tools, predictive dialer into a single piece of software and deliver it in the cloud to SMB and mid-market sales teams. Personal level, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. Which makes me highly unemployable. I've been running my own businesses since I was a teenager. Husband, dad to two young girls here who I'm grooming to become professional golfers one day.
Nice.
Like to kind of cut the ice with a fun fact about myself. I was once Ryan Gosling's lifeguard on Breaker High. You got to be you got to be late 30s to know Breaker High. But I was a big part of his success.
Oh, that's amazing. Does he send you Christmas cards every year?
Not yet. No.
Might want to send him a little nudge, a little reminder. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jay. I love that fun fact. All right. So let's keep moving forward, everybody. So being recognized as TIA's finalists for Company of the Year, Scale, what are some of your big achievements to date? And I think we're going to switch up the order. And Jay, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, back to me. Being doing this for 7 years, certainly quite a few, achievements over the years. I'll touch on a couple that are really, top of mind for us there. Certainly doubling our ARR and our employee headcount here the last 18 months. We were able to supercharge our revenue headcount all while working remotely now. Wasn't sure if we were going to be able to even work remotely at the beginning of the pandemic. We proved to ourselves that we don't need to be on-prem to stay engaged and really scale up these businesses. And kind of a follow-on to that, we've achieved the scale-up success while staying bootstrapped, leveraging positive cash flow, non-dilutive capital options. Most of the space where I play here in B2B SaaS are highly capitalized and venture-backed, which isn't a bad thing to say. There's certainly a spot for it, but there's a level of flexibility and autonomy that comes with bootstrapping. Challenges you to always be thinking a few steps ahead, always be building with profitability and sustainability in mind. And that's certainly an accomplishment I'm very proud of.
Oh, wonderful. And absolutely. I know that Clio, we have also grown rapidly in a short amount of time. And I mean, it's a fantastic challenge to be able to kind of say that you've gotten to you've conquered. All right. So Chris, tell us about your big achievements to date.
Yeah, I mean, I think some similar stories there with Jay. I think the company itself has grown. So we've gone from we've grown about 8 times since 2019. So we were about 8 million in 2019. We're going to get close to 70 this year, which is obviously an exciting growth trajectory. I think honestly, one of the bigger things is the staff retainment that we've been able to do. So we've really grown off the back of a team that has been with us for a while, and we've obviously layered a number of people onto that, and we're very conscious about the people we brought in to ensure that they were able to maintain the kind of culture that we had growing, because it was kind of a cool one that had been started. And not that shipping is usually the coolest thing, but we're trying to make it cool. So that's been almost a bigger achievement. I think similar to Jay's story, we're debt free and profitable. So that at a time where one could argue maybe you shouldn't be. I mean, right now it's nice to be, but generally speaking, growth companies that are growing at the rate we are. That's obviously the kind of decisions that we grapple with as we kind of think about how do we further accelerate into the opportunities that are lying in front of us. And so those are the big conversations we're having now. But yeah, exciting to see the people see some of the opportunities that they've created within it. So I think that's some of the big stuff that we're most proud of.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And Jeremy.
You made me go third, and the first two, I mean, they said everything. What can I tell you? Now we are bootstrapped. 9 years of working through this. I'd say Jay and I have probably engaged with a lot of the similar stuff, which is that idea of how you maintain stability and profitability while trying to grow as aggressively as you can. Comes with a lot of different pain points and a lot of different challenges. For us, I'd say for the obvious accomplishments come with growth in numbers and growth in your revenue and where you are financially. But for Lighthouse, specifically in the education space, scale and quality are kind of the antithesis in how, when you think about personalized education, especially the job outcomes and the results that we've tried to drive. But our number one accomplishment in dealing with that is actually building out different channels of partners that we work with. So we have a corporate segment, which has its own needs and its own customer needs as a corporate, as opposed to just the individual who's getting trained. And then we partner with universities, and partnering with higher eds means that the higher ed has very different goals and needs of your program and how it's supposed to function and operate when you partner and not white label, but you're co-partners on a program like that. And then we work with government, and government does a lot of funding of equity deserving individuals, and how you work with those individuals by the rules of the way government needs to demonstrate its funding. How a company like ours, Bootstrap, goes into places where we can both take the feedback in, build it appropriately for the partner, but always deliver for the actual learner to the results that we want to deliver. That scale element probably took us about 3 years of working through as we slowly built up these channels, because you have to know that you can get the sales, but you can't lose the results. And that 3-year cycle set us up for a place where these past 2 years, we've been able to deal in all of them at scale without one magician person solving all our problems, which really my biggest version of scale is, how many people do I have in the company that they're just one person doing magical things that if they weren't there, we wouldn't know how to do it. We're at a much more advanced level of that now. We have new magicians at new levels, but they're at least more supported.
Wonderful. It's always important to support your magicians. Absolutely. And so Glenn, again, last but not least. Oh, I think you're on mute, Glenn. Just be the catchphrase of the last couple of years.
There we go.
You're on mute.
So I think I might have focused too much on objective measures, but in any event, I had 3 or 4 things I wanted to touch on that, I think I'm proud of that we've achieved as an organization. And firstly is technological. We achieved a breakthrough in our technology, our sensor technology, 6 orders of magnitude improvement in the count rate performance we could achieve with our sensors, which most of the people in the specialized sector we're in did not think was possible. So we really changed the whole kind of technological paradigm with what we did there, and that was a key part of our value as an organization in achieving that. We've had some significant progress the last number of years, and as we've tried to scale this technology up, we've improved our yields for our CT imaging sensor technology by a factor of 300. We started at a very low number. In the last 10 years, we've quadrupled our team size. We went from 50 to 200 people. And probably the most significant achievement is, we've scaled in the last 10 years our equity value in the company by a factor of 40. And that's the one probably our shareholders are most happy about.
Absolutely.
So,
I think most people will be happy about that.
Yeah. So those are my achievements.
Wonderful.
Or our achievements, not mine, ours.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I guess, yeah, there's no I in team, right? So fantastic. So before we continue, I do just want to pause and say that for all of our participants out there, if you have questions for our panel, please don't be shy. Please post them in the chat. We will have time for those in a few moments. So the chat's there for you. Just make sure that you select everyone when you are messaging, so that you're not just messaging other random people on this in the participants list. So thank you so much. All right. So with that, let's continue forward. So it sounds like a lot of you have been through some pretty incredible journeys in the last few years with your companies and with your careers. I would really love to hear about a pivot moment or challenge in your company's journey. How did you deal with that challenge, and what did you learn from it? And so Chris, we're going to start off with you.
Yeah, I think for us, shipping is obviously a critical service to the overall economy. I think everything in the room you're in has probably gotten there on a truck on some part of that journey. But I think
Wait,
it's also
it didn't just show up. What?
yeah,
Crazy.
exactly. It's also a pretty large contributor to the environmental degradation that's going on. So that conundrum kind of provided a bit of a challenge for us. And we made a decision to kind of no longer be blind to that fact. And so at the beginning of January 2021, we made a commitment to offset every shipment that we enable through the planting of trees. And so being in the Pacific Northwest, we're obviously in a bit of an area of abundance. There's some behind you there, Rio. The rest of us are in caged offices, so we can't see the trees. But obviously, you can see, smell the impact that they have in the areas that we live, and as they kind of act as nature's superhero by literally absorbing CO2 and spitting out oxygen. So we made a decision to use trees as the vehicle for our offsetting, and we're kind of planting those trees now. We're getting close to 50,000 trees so far planted. So we're going to veritable forest growing somewhere all over the U.S. at the moment is where we're initially planting. And I think the impact it's had, and is not just on, obviously there's positive environmental impact as we try to offset some of the shipments that are happening, or all of the shipments that are happening, but it's had a pretty big impact on our culture and our team, and kind of the pride that it's created, and the way it's almost redefined who we are as a business has been interesting. And I think the customers and our trucking partners also see that, and they've kind of called us. We've had companies mimic our program and tried to get the research that we've done to do that. So that's been a big one for us, to be honest, in terms of seeing a challenge and trying to find a way to overcome it, and come of obviously the residual effects. We knew it would be something about who we want to be, but I don't think we were necessarily predicting the response the customers and partners were going to have to it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you find that your company culture shifted more towards being kind of environmentally minded, or how is that changed?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think people are proud that everybody's got it, backdrops and stuff like this. We've got the office we're putting up. So I think there's an element of it, people wanting it to be a part of how it defines us, which I think is quite cool. And obviously, there's a variety of things in and around the staff. We haven't had our offices under renovation, so we haven't had it open fully recently. But when we do, I think it's definitely going to be something we'll embrace here as a crew as well.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Jeremy, this time you get to be second.
I like it. Although again, after phenomenal move like building a forest, mine are going to sound much more utilitarian. So look, we from a pivot perspective, we had an outside force, and then we had stuff that we were already doing internally previously that made a big difference. And that outside force was the pandemic. We were an in-person school. We had 6 locations. All our operations, everything was designed for branch-oriented in-person education. But we were thinking about going online, and specifically one of the biggest challenges in building scale for our education is the necessity for relationship with the person teaching. So how someone overcomes some of the personal humps when they're learning things, the idea that there's a teacher and an amazing teacher that can kind of get you over those humps is something that really challenges scale, especially when those teachers and those trainers and everybody, those people that support you are well-paid developers and data scientists outside of the education industry. And so, it is, if we think of anyone here, if we were all to go teach a leadership course or anything like that, the price for us versus the price at a normal teacher level makes it very difficult to scale. You have to bring in very high level of student and price point and all that kind of stuff. And so Lighthouse about 6 years ago almost, had started by attacking the individual single relationship and how we could know more in terms of the kind of challenges that individuals are having, so that we could have a gig economy of developers and data scientists that were able to show up and support you in a personalized way that you needed. So not foregoing the fact that someone had to understand what you were going through, but where it didn't need to be the same person all the time. And that pivot point of how we built a software for that, not all that dissimilar than an Uber, which is, you come, you get ratings and so on, but you had to know a lot more about the learning side. It was very hard to get our at the time, our mentor, our supporters, the people who support the students. I call them mentors, others call them TAs outside of our space. So it makes it easier to understand who they are. But all the people that show up to support the students, they were really resistant towards a situation where they didn't get to own the relationship with an individual, because that's also what's in it for them in a lot of ways doing this. And we had to build it out in a way that changed behavior, changed mentality for people, and the students themselves had to see the results. We couldn't change it for a lesser quality experience because that would have been noticed extremely quickly. And we spent years kind of working on that and operating. And it was basically something that we ingrained in our culture by the time that the pandemic hit, that really allowed us to shift the whole focus into a more remote experience that was still very connected and engaged and supported, but wasn't reliant on a classroom setting where one person was just able to walk around and really know everybody. And that dynamic, that pivot, made it for scale that we could add a lot more students with kind of a, an accordion level of individuals supporting based on where we were, and we knew how to onboard them. We knew how they needed to train and support, and we could allow them to have normal jobs as developers and data scientists that paid them normal dollars, and then came on to support during their off hours to add additional money towards them, which meant that they didn't have to leave us as soon as a new dev job offer came from Facebook, right? Which was really problematic for us at the beginning. So that point of scale really opened the door to allow us to kind of grow with individual relationships being less intact, and meaningful personalized learning still very much a focus.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that sounds like a very challenging balance to find.
It was. That's all I can say is it was.
It was.
I imagine for everybody here, there are these pain points when it comes to scale, that there's like the obvious stuff, like the pivot from a pandemic. And then there's all the amazing work that was going on underneath, or different problem solved and different things that were meant to unattach certain parts of the business that were very core at the beginning, or you thought were core operationally. And I think that that's the biggest learning I've taken with scale in general, is prepping for it, but not overcommitting to it is a balance that you kind of need to do by sussing out your biggest problems early, but not making all the changes have to happen right away. And that balance has been challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're pressured with growing at a really fast pace, it can be a challenge. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. All right, Glenn, my friend.
Jay, I was just noticing that Jeremy and Chris didn't get the dress code memo.
It's true. I was very upset, Glenn. I said nobody sent it to me, and now I just look like a schmo.
A black zip up thing. Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about, I guess, a couple of events in our 20-odd year history, that really impacted us from a pivot kind of perspective. The first was kind of at the end of the financial crisis. I'd negotiated a long-term supply contract for semiconductor feedstock material for the thin film solar industry, and it was a big contract, and it was very profitable, and it was a kind of a cornerstone that we were building our growth plan around from a profitability and generation of cash perspective. And what happened shortly, a couple of years after we had that contract in place, was the financial crisis really hurt the thin film solar industry. And our customer came to us one day and said, "Yep, I realize we have this big contract, but sorry, we're not gonna fulfill it." And so that was a major near-death experience for us, and we had to do a downsizing and a recapitalization. And it was a very painful lesson learned. And I think the lesson we took from that was, not only do you have to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of your own business, but you got to keep your finger on the pulse of the business of your biggest customers.
Yes.
But we survived that, and we went on, and we had another, kind of major pivot type moment. In 2020, we were negotiating an acquisition of a company to Canada, and we'd spent 7 months on this deal, and we were down to dotting the I's and crossing the T's when I got a call from the lead executive in Japan saying, "I've just got word that the board has shut down all M&A activity. We've had our worst results in 35 years, and I don't know when we're going to be doing this kind of stuff again. If ever, ever, but we don't know when it's going to happen, and we don't know what it means for this." And we were pretty. It was a pretty devastating blow. We'd kind of planned. We kind of planned that this was going to happen. At this point, we were that far down the path, and from a runway and other perspectives, we just weren't anticipating, being left at the altar. But we maintained very good relationships with the key players that we were working with. We raised some additional funds to take us through the next few years, and we restarted an M&A process in 2021. And as it turned out, Canon came back to the table, and we're still extremely, got the green light to pursue M&As again, and they're extremely keen to re-engage. And we actually ended up closing the deal with them the second time around at a higher valuation than the first time. So, I guess the key lesson learned from that was that, don't burn your bridges. We were pretty peeved at the way things turned out the first time, but we kind of bit our lips and maintained good relationships with all the parties involved. And the other, kind of lesson learned from that was that, the situations and the playing field we're dealing with can just like turn on a dime. Things can just change so unexpectedly in ways you don't, you just never would have thought of. And so, those are two of our, I think, key kind of pivot points and lessons learned.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much, Glenn. All right, and Jay, on to you.
Yes. So I'll use one of our biggest achievements that I mentioned earlier that actually came from one of our biggest challenges. So March 2020, I know lots of people affected. Beginning of the pandemic, I think we were faced with really the most challenging situation I've ever had as an entrepreneur. Just for a little bit of context, we are an SMB product. Mostly month-to-month contracts. With that comes very little barrier to churn. Customers can leave fast. Within 15 days, I think we lost about 20% of our client base there. So they'd reached out. They told us by the end of the month they'd be canceling. Like I mentioned, we are bootstrapped. That means we don't have a war chest of money to float us if this churn continued. So we were scared. Team was scared. I know families were scared, but we knew the product that we have, we're delivering value to the client. It's mission critical. It's communication software. We hatched a plan to ensure all the clients were ready when they were ready to come back to us. We're going to be there for them. We offered every single client who gave notice free cloud storage for recordings, data, opportunities, everything they had, so that they could actually hop back into the product without onboarding, 1 minute, go live. So we really made a bet that this was sort of a short-term thing. They would come back. About 8 weeks later, we started to see them trickle back. And we really learned that the product, it's truly designed for not just on-premise businesses, but we can work, remotely. Didn't really sleep in March. I remember it very vividly. Fear of sort of losing your business and all the time and your employees who've invested into it was, quite frightening. But fast forward a few months later, all those clients who gave them out notice, they did come back. We were accelerating deals in the pipeline, having record-breaking months for net new. We didn't lay off a single person through the pandemic. In fact, we hired right through it, adapted to really being a remote first team ourselves, just like our clients did. Every employee used to be here in Vancouver. During this time, we doubled the team, and now about half in Vancouver, the rest across North America. So really the biggest takeaway from that whole experience was really go with your gut. We knew we were delivering value to the clients. A small investment in them yielded a big ROI for us. We kind of took care of them. They took care of us. And I guess that was really the biggest takeaway from it.
That's fantastic. And I think that echoes what Glenn said too about not burning your bridges, right? Just because people have there's a hard time on one end doesn't mean that it won't work out eventually. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jay. All right. So next question, folks. The theme of the TIAs is ambition this year. What are your ambitions for the future? So Jeremy, you get to be number one. All the pressure's on. Are you ready?
Definitely. Always ready with a question like this. I think for Lighthouse Labs, what we see is just in general a missing infrastructure for adult education. We think that adult education is either seen as very passive by the employee, take some video, learn some things, and then just hope that that helps you, gain in your career. Or the opposite is there's kind of like, a stigma attached to going and taking certain courses in a continuing ed segment or something like that. It's more for newcomers or people who need the credibility, or polytechnics that aren't Waterloo, things like that. In our view, the generation that's kind of moved forward here is one that is going to be constantly changing careers, has skills that are very translatable. Demand for jobs is going to change drastically. And so people's abilities to move forward, adjust themselves, gain the skills they need, but not do it in a way where it's intensely burdensome just on them and where the results of it all mean something. There is a whole system that has to adjust and change. This is not just about people's mentality or, one of these CEOs deciding, let's make this better in my own company. This is about how government perceives it, how post-secondary perceives it, and how as a society, education throughout your life with the results and with the kind of things you want is a more deciphered space, and one that actually has a lot of infrastructure for people to do it well, including high-end professionals. I think for us, our ambition is driving an image of that in one particular area and section where it's very clear that this kind of training can be done for very effective professionals, and that this is something that allows for people to make more change in their life when they want to, without the risk of having to start all over again at entry-level segments, and allowing to fill talent gaps in a more meaningful way, because I really think that's what drives our ability to innovate and change more than anything else. And so Lighthouse, my ambition is getting this kind of stuff normalized, and part of getting it normalized is producing amazing results on a regular basis. And that balance is what we're trying to drive at, or what I really care about.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So kind of transforming the landscape as it currently stands. Yeah.
You said ambitious. So I just want
Yeah, and that's
I just want to
great.
change everything. It's
That's fantastic. Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeremy. All right, Chris, tell me about your ambitions for the future.
I just want to make shipping cool. No, I think really, obviously, companies have large ambitions in terms of where you want to get to with respect to revenue, and we've got really big ambitions of getting into 9 figures next year and getting to $250 million in 3, and we want to plant 1 million trees is another one. But I think 2 things. One, the biggest ambition is allowing the people that we've got to grow and within the opportunities that are being created. So I think that's a really neat thing, is seeing these people grow with the company that they are constructing is very cool to watch. I think that's one. On a market size scale, what we find in shipping is small businesses that are trying to ship stuff direct to a consumer, it costs about 20% of what they're making, right? And the difference between 25 and 15 is 10% of pure profit. And so what we're trying to do is allow the small shippers the ability to kind of democratize this a bit by taking that 25 that they're paying versus the big company who's paying 15, and bring it to a level where they can compete and not lose money on every single shipment that they serve or item that they sell. And so our ability to find different ways to kind of apply our scale to simplify and provide ease to these guys will give them that profitability, that extra bit of profit they need to kind of fuel their own business and actually be able to sell more. So we really do feel like this is a huge chunk of people's balance sheet, especially if you're doing anything that is direct to the consumer in an e-commerce environment, and even a brick and mortar to an extent. But so we really feel we can play a key role in allowing them to be more successful.
Yeah, wonderful. And I really admire that you have both internal and external ambitions. So thinking about the people that are building that team, that are on your team, but also thinking about those that you serve. It's fantastic. All right. So next, Jay.
Yeah, I'll steal Chris's line. I'm trying to make call centers cool over here. So it's almost as hard as shipping. So yeah, so I'll just kind of say, we're laser focused here on becoming Canada's next narwhal and BC's next technology anchor. We've got a compelling, proven solution for a real problem that sales orgs face here. We use a framework here. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's actually, you can see the book behind me. It's called Traction. I recommend that for anybody who's trying to operationalize their kind of growth stage startup. And with that, we really map out our ambitious goals from 90 days all the way to 10 years from now. Ambition without a plan, it's really just a wish. So we've got clear executable plans to 4x revenue, double headcount, develop new products to help our target market grow over the next 24 months here. Ambition for me, personal level, it really comes from helping on other entrepreneurs. Our product here, it helps entrepreneurs scale their own businesses. At the same time, we foster that same entrepreneurial mindset within our own employees, giving them every opportunity for personal development, education allowances, leadership training, courses at Lighthouse. We really try to encourage the side hustle in hopes that those will also develop into scale-ups down the road.
Oh, fantastic. And I really like that quote. Ambition without a plan is just a wish. It is so, so very true. Wonderful. Thank you, Jay. All right, Glenn, tell me about your ambitions.
Yeah, we have I'd say a very clear but challenging ambition at Redlen. And I think, the interesting thing about our corporate ambition is that I'd say it aligns almost 100% directly with all of our team members. So we have that kind of alignment of corporate and individual ambition, and really to succinctly articulate what we're trying to do here is we're trying to really revolutionize the accuracy and capabilities of medical CT, which will have an incredible impact on the lives of millions of people. And it's somewhat of an altruistic ambition that everyone can get excited about and get behind. And I think kind of an illustration of that alignment is, we were acquired just over a year ago, and our attrition, a lot of people did very, very well out of that. Our attrition rate hasn't changed from what it was before. People were driving nicer cars. So I think that's specifically because people are bought into and committed to what we're doing. And we have our customers now in clinical trials, and within 2 years, we expect our customers will start shipping commercially. And that's kind of a bucket list achievement for me and many, many people here.
Oh, fantastic. I feel like that's very kind of admirable too, and making healthcare easily accessible and functioning better. It's fantastic. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Glenn. So we have a few minutes left. Before we jump into questions, I would love it if someone would post some questions in the chat, folks. Please don't be shy. We've got lots. You've got these 4 fantastic panelists here. Please feel free to pick their brains, ask them all your burning questions. And it looks like Gillian, thank you. Gillian, I hope I pronounced that properly. All right, so friends, as your businesses have scaled, what do you think the main trade-off has been moving from scrappy startup to enterprise? I love this question. Chris, Jeremy, sorry, Chris, Jeremy. Put up his hand first.
I'm happy to be. I wasn't sure if you wanted one person or everybody.
No, I would love it if everyone could answer this. Yeah.
For me, the easiest thing was family to team. I think scrappy startup, the concept that everybody for us was working very much like it was their own business, exactly like it was their own business, and trying to drive with all solutions at all times, back to those magicians, the kind of people you needed to be aware of everything, doing everything, to how you built an infrastructure where you understood you were all on a team. Everyone has a strong role to play. The investment still needs to be substantial into the goals that you're going. That's my job, is to make sure that people feel connected and interwoven into this, and that their impact matters, but not to be part of every decision at all time, and also to allow them to have their own, a space from it where this is not their be all end all, and understanding that. I think that changeover from scrappy startup to where we are now as a company was a really important one, was a big culture adjustment for people at first. And then it's kind of the kind of people that you bring in, which does change quite substantially as you continue to grow, and how you maintain that consistency with what you were doing previously while still adjusting that mentality is something we worked very hard on.
Got it. Wonderful. Thank you, Chris.
Nothing huge to add there. I think like focus is obviously a big one. Creating lanes is kind of Jeremy talked about. You're running around a lot trying to find where the dollar is as a scrappy startup. And if you got the right people, you're gonna kind of get there. But the ability to scale requires those people to be doing different things because you need them to be driving the business forward. So it's filling in behind and creating those lanes that people can work in, as opposed to everybody doing everything. I think when I joined here, there was 15 people, 2.5 years ago or whatever it was, and we had an amazing team. And the culture was very helpful. Everyone was very helpful to each other. But you can't have that, in that you want that brand to stay, but you cannot have people doing everything. You can't have the product person on every sales call just because they're amazing at it, because I need the product person to be focusing on executing on new and exciting product that's looking out a little bit further. And same thing. So there's a lot of that goes on in a small company that it creates that family that Jeremy's talking about. And you don't want to disrupt it. You just need to channel it more effectively. So yeah, I'd agree.
Yes, absolutely. And I know for Clio, we also, experienced some growing pains, and going from that everyone doing everything to the lanes, I think was a very big challenge for us as well. It's it can definitely be an adjustment, but it is so important to be able to do that and focus everyone in the same direction. All right, Jay, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. We are definitely somewhere between scrappy startup and enterprise. We're definitely not up there. But I would say that, the importance of really operationalizing your business. I think the trade-off there for us was, we're moving fast. The revenue, it kind of takes precedent over everything. And then you get to a point where you look back and it's much hard to retroactively go back and try to operationalize and professionalize your business. So I think really choosing an operating system early, we really liked EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, but I wish I would have implemented it much sooner, because in retrospect, we spend a lot of time going back and trying to unwind and fix things that really a scrappy startup does.
Yeah. And I think having worked in a scrappy startup too, it can be very difficult to look so far forward, and build those foundations early, because you're just so busy trying to get the job done, trying to get the product out there, trying to just be the best. So yeah, definitely a good point for folks to remember is to build that groundwork early. Glenn, now I know you guys have been around for about 20 years, I think.
Something like that. Who's counting?
Yeah. So were you at the
company? I guess I'll maybe express similar themes in a slightly different language, and that is that I just think there's an unavoidable transition, from when you're the scrappy startup to an enterprise. You've got to implement levels of process, structure. You don't know every single person in the company. You don't you aren't all able to get together around one table and have pizza. There's an element that we really miss. However, are we going to make payday part of it? We don't miss, so there are unavoidable negative consequences of scale. And we try hard to, find ways to mitigate some of those things, but, to an extent, they're unavoidable. And, there is a cultural change you need to accept and as you scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is that change can be difficult, but it sounds like you've all managed to navigate that wonderfully. So kudos to all of you. And so last question before I pass it over to Erica, what would it mean for you and your teams if you were to be announced the Company of the Year Scale winner next week at the TIAs? And Chris, I'm going to start with you this time, and I promise it's not a psych. I won't psych you out.
Problem. I mean, it's amazing just to be nominated. No, I'm just kidding. I'll put the cliche out there. No, I think obviously it's each company here's got a really cool story, no question, and it's gone through a pretty neat journey. And to be in this category is pretty humbling on its own. It would be for me really cool for the OGs of Freight Club, right? Those that were there at the beginning when it was literally a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right. That is like, even I wasn't here at the founding moment. I've obviously come in and been a benefactor of the work that they've put in. And but I think that those stories are cool. I've been in that situation where we're starting a company and you've got these absurd stories that you have that you couldn't possibly have fathomed that took place. And the fact that this company was built originally and running off a spreadsheet with some good people trying to keep tabs on things is insane to think about. And to see us kind of getting close to 100 million maybe in the next year is really quite cool, I think, for them. To know that no matter where they go in their career, whatever happens after this, obviously they're not allowed to leave, but that's why we have such good retention rates. No, but the fact that they will have been a part of that journey is really cool. And so that this would be obviously a milestone to recognize that, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, absolutely. And it means a lot to someone to be able to see kind of the fruits of their labor and to be able to say like, hey, yeah, I built that. I helped with that. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Okay, Glenn, tell us what this would mean for you and your team.
Yeah, I think I'm going to perhaps echo some of Chris's comments, and that, I think the biggest impact of winning one of these awards is the impact it has on the employee base. And we've been fortunate to win a few other things, and I've just seen the effect it has on people, that they really feel a level of ownership and contribution and really part of that. It's really great to see. And it's kind of analogous. I remember, back at PMC when I was looking at resumes, and it's like, I must have got 1,000 resumes from people who said they were part of the original Intel processor development. It's like, well, there's only 20 people on that project, but everyone wants to be part of that. The most compelling thing of what causes people to stay and remain part of something, it's because people want to be part of a success. And I think when you win awards, that's an external recognition of a level of success, and people want to be part of a success.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, once others start paying attention to what you're doing, you're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right, Jay, tell us about what this would mean for you and your team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of echo what Glenn and Chris said. This is really, for me, it's validation for the team. We've got very high retention rates when it comes to employees. Many people have been here for 7 years from the very beginning. So certainly validation for them that all the hard work and effort that they've put in, that we're on the right track here. And maybe also a byproduct, and we didn't really talk about this today, maybe it's another panel, but one of the challenges that we face as a business in this kind of scale up environment is talent acquisition. And I think definitely being recognized like that will make it a lot easier for us to go out and hire and retain more talent.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone wants to be on a winning team, right? Wonderful. Thank you, Jay. All right. And I don't know if Jeremy could follow those three, but do you want to try?
I'm trained in the art of conversation here, so I just find a new angle and I'll push it. But obviously, I think the first three things you heard is the biggest. And I'd say for the people up here who are probably speaking on behalf of everybody else thinking about that, I mean, Chris's point about nomination, like nomination was everything, to be honest. Winning or being nominated, the difference between it for us is the outside recognition. It's for our team currently, being nominated is phenomenal. Winning obviously is just an extra moment of awesome. But what I think this really does for us is you ask a lot of people to put trust into the way you're thinking about things, the strategy. And for people who've had companies, Chris is doing this in 2 years, so I leave him out of it. He's just, he's more exceptional than all of us. But Jay in 7 years, and Glenn's talked about his company for 20 years. For me, it's the idea that there's a lot of people who put effort in that aren't even with us anymore. That have kind of gone on, and they want to know that their efforts mattered and kind of, made an impact. And scaling education for us is not easy. It helps validate to a lot of people that the kind of thing they were part of at some point or another led to something substantial. And then for our students, which is the only other part that I guess it's harder for others, is because this is, we win awards for best boot camp or big, one of the top boot camps or things like that. It's usually for students, like for people choosing to come to us, what matters.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, it gives them security knowing their certificate, that what they're getting from us is actually going to last and is going to be here and is going to remain of substance. Because I think one of the biggest concerns with new startups in education or new spaces is that you go there, you train, they disappear, and you try to say, oh, I went to that company, and nobody knows what that is. And so scale for our company also means name recognition for all our students who went here, which is a really big change for a lot of them, the signal of getting in the door. And so seeing an award like that, just, it helps them believe in that. I think, though, I told you I could find a lot of angles in it, but I do think the employee happiness, recognition, and talent bring people in makes a big difference when it's not just the CEO yelling it, right? Yeah. And saying how this is all going great.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And certainly as someone who has kind of experienced a less than reputable education experience, absolutely building that trust and having that recognition out there is so important, especially when you're investing so much of your time into this and into your future. So wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. It has been wonderful to chat with you.